You're the clone
All
expert.
right. So should I do an intro here?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a partial podcast. And what I mean by partial podcast is that we are down a Gundark. We have a trader and we have a Rhodian here, and we so we're just going to kind of wing it today. We've got a topic in mind, but we'll get into all that right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Singing your no.
Yep, yep.
You're singing your no.
Yeah.
No.
No.
At the Cantina Club.
All right, and we are back. So we are going to talk about the topic we chose, and we're doing this completely on the fly because we came up with this topic like 10 minutes ago. We're going to discuss our top five and least five, well, not really top five, our five favorite and our five least favorite things about the sequel trilogy. Now that the sequel trilogy is done and it's in the books, we're going to just kind of do a brief discussion of the good and the bad, and possibly even
So
the
wait. Are we doing moments, or are we doing things that we liked
it
and
can be
things that we didn't
things, it
like?
can be moments, it can be whatever you want it
Okay,
to be.
because
Because
these are
I've actually got both.
these are two different discussions in a way.
Well, yeah, but I've got both in mind. So
Okay, all right.
I've got both in mind to mention. I've got like specific moments from the movies that I do and don't like, and I've also got like themes that I don't do and
Okay,
don't like, aren't
all
necessarily
right.
moments. So yeah, but overall, I think it'll be an interesting discussion just to kind of
This is just a discussion. Don't
right.
this is not the Cantina Club official things. That's we saw Rise of Skywalker a few weeks back, about a month ago now, for
Yeah,
the first time. So it's had a little bit of time to set in, and that's it for the sequel trilogy. As
yep.
far as we know, it's over. So you can kind of start to begin to put it in perspective and judge it more as a complete work, if that's what we can call it,
Yeah.
um, going forward from here. So let's start with a favorite
Okay.
something you like. I'll let you go first.
All right. So something I liked from the sequel trilogy. I'm actually going to start with Rise of Skywalker, and I'm going to go with the culmination of Kylo's redemption arc. And I that's just one of the things I enjoyed the most about the third and final movie. I still think that all throughout the three latest films that he's one of the only characters that I actually connected with, and I felt had a story that I cared about.
The homicidal maniac.
Yeah, exactly. Go figure. A traitor liking that. Uh, but yeah, I enjoyed his character more than any of them, pretty much. And I was kind of hoping they would ultimately go for the redemption story, and then, of course, he dies. Spoilers, by the way. Uh,
Yes. Spoiler discussion. I'll put it in bold
yeah,
in the
exactly.
description.
So that's one of the first things I would say is that I enjoyed about the sequel trilogy is the ultimate culmination of his redemption arc, and the fact that he did die at the end, that they didn't necessarily make it the complete Disney-esque ending where he actually gets redeemed, survives, falls in love, and they go off into the sunset together. So
Mhm.
I think they handled it fairly well. So that'll be my first
The
like.
double sunset.
Yeah, that'll be my first of the sequel trilogy. How about you?
Well, I do have a question on that for
Hmm.
you. What was your in Rise of Skywalker? What was your favorite kind of moment from that, from Ben's redemption or whatever you want to call it? Like, was it the overall thing that sold you on it? Was it driver's performance, or was there
It
a
was dri-
moment that you
it
were on board, or what?
honestly it was all that. But I think driver's performance really did help.
Yeah,
Um, just the way
because he had no dialogue after he
right,
throws the saber away.
right. And I loved I mean, and if you want to talk about a moment, this will all kind of piggyback on the same thing I'm talking about here. One of my favorite moments in the entire film is when she hands him the saber, and he brings it out
Ah,
and holds it, and he just has that weird shrug. I just love that.
right,
Or the
right.
guys later, he just kind of goes like this. I just thought that was great. It's like they've been basically kicking his ass up to that point, and then suddenly he's got a lightsaber. He's like, all right, now we can start. I love that moment. So
I think that's a throwback to Han, isn't it?
yeah,
Kind
it
of
is.
that.
Just kind of showing like father, like son kind of thing. Yeah. Because it
And
really
then
did look
in
like
Empire,
this.
that sort of shrug he did, and
Right.
then in Jedi, he kind of did. I think he did a
Yeah,
shrug
Jedi
too.
does it again at the
Yeah.
uh, on Endor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that as well, but I find it hard to pinpoint a specific like redemption moment. I don't know that I believe that he was redeemed, even though his body disappeared at the end,
Mhm.
because he basically did what he did, turning good or whatever. Good. He he almost did it for selfish reasons, which I guess you could say Vader did too.
Mhm.
But it both came down to, saving someone they loved, even though Kylo Ren or Ben never said he loved Rey. He did sacrifice his life at the end for her.
Mhm.
But really, all he did was bring her back to life. He
Right.
didn't affect the outcome of the big conflict. He just kind
No,
of
no, he didn't. He
he
just brought
just
her
kind
back
of
to life
handed
after it
off
was
the
already
legacy to
settled.
someone that was more worthy than him in a
Right.
way.
Right.
Someone who was
Absolutely.
never corrupted by the dark side or whatever is
And I
the way
think
I
he
look at it. So,
ultimately knew what he was doing. He knew that he was dying, and he basically used the last bit of his life force to save her, so that
oh,
he
that's an
basically.
interesting take. Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
most everybody, including me, thinks he was going to live, but then he died because of that. But maybe he was dying already.
Mhm.
Okay, so a like for me. uh, I was thinking of this in terms of moments mostly, so I'm going to start with those. And I love the moment from Force Awakens with the Falcon reveal,
Okay.
where they say the junk will do, and then you get the little
Mhm.
Star Wars burst of Star Wars theme music,
Yeah.
and that whole sequence where they're running on that to the point where that sequence ends is, I think, possibly the best
Mhm.
sequence in the entire sequel trilogy. It's got to be up there. Um, the way you get to see the Falcon take off, smash through some things, which is very much in
Mhm.
character with the Falcon, and then piloting it through the Star Destroyer, and that whole bit was exhilarating the first couple of times you saw it. I still don't know that they topped that for spaceship
Mhm.
choreography in a space battle, even though it wasn't in space. But I don't know that that was almost maybe the best use of the ships in the. We also got to know the new characters. They are suddenly in the familiar setting, and their excitement at the end of that was
Mhm.
really helped get you on board with them as a team or whatever. Um, so anyway, and the music was great. The visuals were great. We were
Mhm.
back in the theater seeing the Falcon flying again, even though it didn't have any of the legacy characters. It was that moment that made me think, maybe I'd be okay with a whole movie of just these characters.
Right.
Because I came in expecting to see the old characters pretty much from the get go,
Right.
and I was through that first part of the movie. I was waiting for them to show up and like, how's this gonna go? But
Mhm.
then that sequence and the charm of those characters being together and stuff and BB-8 and everything, I thought, yeah, I haven't really missed the old characters yet. So
Yeah.
so then I started to get on board with their plan. Like maybe it's gonna be okay that Luke isn't in this or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a moment for me that is
Mhm.
definitely near the top.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, very much so.
So we've done one.
Yeah.
One like. Let's do a dislike.
Oh, do okay. So just go back and forth. All right. Um. All right. I have to go for one of the worst moments that set the whole entire tone for The Last Jedi for me, and that was, and this is an actual specific moment, which is Luke flipping the saber over his shoulder.
Oh man, yeah.
That, from the moment that happened, and we're only a few minutes into the film, it literally, and I know I've used this phrase before, but it was literally like a punch to the gut, and I
Mhm.
never recovered the entire film.
Yes,
I just never, because
no.
it never got any better after that,
Oh,
for me.
yeah.
So I just couldn't come back from that. So that's definitely right there in my top five worst moments from the sequel trilogy. Just the whole, especially the way they left it hanging at the end of the first film, to have it come. You wait 2 years to see, oh, what's going to happen when he finally gets the saber, and he just flips it over his shoulder and storms off like the grumpy old man. I just wait, what? I don't know.
Master Skywalker.
Yeah,
She
it
suddenly
just set
becomes
the.
C-3PO in that scene,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Master Skywalker, whatever has happened?
So yeah, I would definitely point to that as one of my absolute least favorite moments of the sequel trilogy. That just it
Yeah,
just
you
just
know what? As long as
feels like
we're on it
for me.
and you've brought it up, I gotta agree with you. I mean, if you're making a list of disliked moments or disliked things, it'd be real easy for me, and you're doing five, like we already talked about. It'd be real easy just all five to be from The Last Jedi for me.
I know, I know.
But
I'm gonna
but
try. I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
try
try
not to,
not
but I
to
can't
do
make any
that, right?
promises.
But yeah, you can't. It really set the tone of like the bar is really low now. This, it can't get worse than this, right? And then it does.
It
But
does.
almost that is one of the worst. The first is the worst almost. Just because we saw Gundark and I saw The Force Awakens back to back with the first viewing of The Last Jedi. So we had that moment of the Jedi Steps soundtrack where she's going up, in that big build up. Luke was not in the first movie at all. This is his moment. This is her moment meeting him. It's epic. And the promise of what you're going to see next is what carried us over those 2 years.
Yep.
And when you're in the movie theater and you see them back to back, you sit through the credits. Boom, you go right into the next one. You have the space battle from The Last Jedi at the beginning. Then it cuts back to that moment. You're ready to give this movie a chance and to see what all this buildup was for, and what is Luke going to say? What are Luke's first words going to be? How's Ray going to react? And yeah, it was. I remember uh, several people laughing, and then several people laughing and then like stifling it, like they didn't know whether
Right.
it was really supposed to be funny or not.
Right.
And also they laughed out loud into a quiet theater, but it made everybody uncomfortable. I think like this, and the tone of the movie. There was no really better way to announce all bets are off than doing that. So I guess if you're a big fan of Ryan Johnson's Star Wars vision, which I'm still not sure what it was, but if you're a fan of that, it's probably one of your favorite moments because it set the tone in a way almost nothing could.
Right.
I mean, other than him just tossing it in the ocean and it
Yeah,
just being gone
exactly.
forever.
Just throw it away forever.
It's almost like they did it in a way where it could be done over, which is even weaker in a way. But
Oh, exactly.
But yeah, I said this is one reason why I hate this moment so much. Is I said when I saw The Force Awakens, and I've repeated this many times, but as soon as it was over, our friends all took a poll who liked, who didn't like, and they asked me, and I said I really don't know how to feel. I enjoy this as a standalone movie, but it's not a standalone movie. The last 10 minutes lead you right into the next one, which has never happened in a Star Wars movie before. So I'm like, this doesn't stand alone. I have to see what happens next to judge whether the sacrifice of Han, the leaving out from an entire Star Wars movie when Mark Hamill's perfectly available and willing to do it. I have to know whether those sacrifices are worth it.
Or worth it.
So that moment where Luke throws that over his shoulder, unless something drastic happens in the rest of the movie, which it didn't, it reached back in time and bitch slapped The Force Awakens for me and took it down several notches.
Absolutely did.
So and kind of ruined that music. Jedi Steps was one of my favorite pieces of music that John Williams came up with for the new prequel trilogy. Rey's theme is great, and that Jedi Steps stuff is just fantastic. And it went from it became a Monty Python buildup. Like a Holy Grail buildup, like
Absolutely.
here's God down from the heavens, and he's a cartoon,
Right.
And the whole thing's
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
yeah, and hey, do that on TV or something. Like in a Star Wars TV show, you want to explore the things in a whatever you call it, one of the main films.
Yeah.
I think it was a terrible move, and I don't understand why nobody spoke up. So anyway, a lot's encapsulated in that one moment.
Yeah.
That I felt like it was in keeping with The Last Jedi, and then it made everyone take a step back. It made the whole Jedi legacy look worse. It made Rey look worse. It made Luke look 100 times worse. Probably even reached back and made Vader and Anakin look worse. So as bold as it was, it's definitely a least favorite and disliked.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the saber toss as our first dislike.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want to do next? Do you want to do another like or a dislike?
Yeah, let's go back to a like.
Okay.
All right. So for me, I will say, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can go with this. it's kind of a given that it's a softball to say John Williams score,
Right. Right.
because it's so easy. But in particular, I will pick out Ray's theme. I
Okay.
just the way that to me is just head and shoulders above all the rest of the music for the newer three films. Every time I hear it, I don't know, I love it. It's just that little piece of
Yeah.
music that just grabs me every time. And in typical John Williams style, he does it in different styles. Like
Hmm.
depending on the mood of the scene.
Hmm.
Like when she's training in Last Jedi, it's very light and very just because she's out there. You've got the scenic view of the island, and she's just practicing her lightsaber and stuff. And then you've got the little bit like in the new film at the end when she's fighting Palpatine. Basically, you've got her theme, but it's very ominous and very dark sounding. So he's always
Hmm.
been a master of changing themes to fit the mood of the scene. But yeah, Ray's theme just from Force Awakens on just really got me, and to me it's right up there with the classic themes from the original trilogy even. So
I would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Especially
it's fantastic.
as the sequel trilogy went on,
Mm,
it gained more significance. Where that moment, which is this is not one of my favorite moments, but that moment where she lands Red 5,
mm,
and the music changes from a crescendo back to Ray's theme, where
mm,
BB-8's coming up to her, was
right.
great. I mean, that it's
Yeah,
funny
well done.
when a new sequel trilogy that's only whatever 5 years old, you feel nostalgic for a theme from the first one.
Yeah,
And that's what
yeah,
they managed to do. They threw in a lot of nostalgia right at one moment, and then you're suddenly nostalgic about Ray's theme, and like makes you like Ray more. And that's the power of John Williams. He
yeah,
can make you like a character,
right.
and make you feel like you know a character even though you know nothing about them.
Hmm.
One of the best examples of that to me is Princess Leia's theme from the original Star Wars.
Hmm.
If you go back and listen to that, it's one of the greatest
It
pieces
really
as a
is. Yeah.
whole that Williams ever did, right up there with the Imperial March, and
Oh,
informing you what a character is. But if I watched Star Wars and I was tasked with composing music for Star Wars, which would have been a disaster, but anyway, I would have never come up with a theme of such nuance and everything as he did for Princess Leia's theme, based on the character you were seeing in the dailies and on screen. Um, he took all the innocence and bravery and then tragedy and sadness that a
yeah.
character like that would feel after the fact, seeing their home destroyed and stuff, and sacrificing so much, and put it all into this really nuanced, elegant, beautiful piece that was way better than the movie. It was way better than its source material.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's what he does, and that's what he did with Ray's theme. Was as soon as you saw her, she had enough around her for you to identify her as the hero, as the audience immediately. They did a really good job in The Force Awakens of communicating things to the audience. But the theme seals it, that there's not just this is a hero, there's going to be a journey here. Like, this person stands out, this person's significant, and the themes in that bit of music inform you about the character and make you comfortable with the character and make you trust the character. Just like with Vader's theme, the Imperial March,
Hmm.
um, it informs you in another way. It informs you that this is fascism, and this is
Right.
power. This is just
Right.
naked power grab.
Hmm.
And but it also is a wonderful piece of music and kind of makes you want to join the Empire. So,
Yeah. It's
and this is
you
part
could
of
see them putting this on their recruitment
right.
tapes, their recruitment videos,
To some like you watching the original trilogy, Vader may have been an anti-hero from the beginning, and then when you got Vader's theme in that moment, he's full on anti-hero from that point. You could root for him. You
Yeah,
just
right.
you chose to instead of the rebels. Anyway, so yeah, excellent choice. For my and again, these are off the top of my head. So I was
Mhm.
originally thinking like tops, but there's no way to do the tops right now without really thinking about it.
Mhm.
Um There's several I could do here, but I'm going to give The Last Jedi a prop here. Don't expect it very often, and say the how do I phrase this? The moment where in the Battle of Crate, where the Falcon arrives, and then the Falcon goes through the crystal caves,
Okay.
with the TIE fighters chasing it. Simply because it's a great moment. It really is. Any moment with the Falcon really succeeds in the sequel trilogy. I'll give them that. It's almost like they protected that as their brand above everything else was the Falcon.
Yeah.
Protect the Falcon because we've got this Galaxy's Edge coming out.
Yeah.
But the TIE fighter attack theme in that was such a welcome moment. And The Last Jedi drags so much of its time that when we finally get some action and it's well choreographed action, it's another good moment. It's an echo. It's not truly original. It's another echo of everything else in Star Wars. So you can't give it too much credit. But the use of the soundtrack there, where it's almost like John Williams is like, finally, I can I can unleash something here.
Yeah.
And you're back into an actual conflict again, where The Last Jedi is all about this gray area where you don't feel at home at any point in the movie, really. Well, that begins to draw you into, okay, we can take a breath. We've got a traditional battle going on here with good and evil.
Yeah.
And
Millennium Falcon versus TIE fighters. It's just
And
a staple of the films.
I love the setting of Crate, even though a lot of people criticize it for some reason. I love it.
I
think it's
like
one of
it.
the
Yeah, I have
inspired
no problem with that.
designs they've had in a long time. And when you get to go underneath and see all the, I forget what type of gypsum or something, whatever mineral it is, all those crystals and everything, it's a beautiful visual and a great moment. You got Chewbacca in there. I can even tolerate the Porgs. So I'm going to say the Millennium Falcon TIE Fighter moment from The Last Jedi is a like for me.
Okay, excellent. No, I agree with that. I think you made an excellent point with the fact that it was, anytime something like that happens in these films, regardless of the quality of the film or what you think about it, like we obviously agree on Last Jedi being not great, that still takes you right back into the Star Wars universe, even though what's happening in the film overall is not getting it done. It's still Star Wars. John Williams gets a chance to really, shine with the attack theme and things like that. So it does at least remind you that, okay, we still love Star Wars, even though this movie is hurting my soul.
It's killing me. It is
Exactly.
freaking killing me.
No, that's an excellent point, though. That's a good choice.
And the first time I saw that film, I was still willing to get past it at that point. I was like, please give me something. At any moment it was about to turn the corner and show me something. I was still willing to get back on board if they, I felt like Luke needed more redemption than Ben. After that movie, and in the middle of that movie, it's like, please just redeem him already. Show us something that there's still some Luke left in there, even if it has to be, Rey resuscitating the life into him or whatever, which is I didn't really like. But anything, I would have taken anything. A blow to the head, a porg falling on his head to make him come back to act like Luke. But man, it just took way too long. But anyway, okay, so
before I get into my next dislike, pause. I'm gonna hit a couple of lights here, starting to get a little darker in here.
Yes, you can. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's getting lighter. As long as there's light, we got a chance.
All right, maybe that'll be better.
Remember, as long as there's light, we got a chance.
We got a chance.
Oh my God.
All right, so it's into the dislike again now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so my next dislike, and this is going to
throw a dart.
This is a big one. This is a big one, and I mean, because you and I have talked about this before. But if we were numbering these, this probably would be number one dislike for the sequel trilogy. It's going into a trilogy without a coherent plan.
This is a little more than a moment. This is everything.
Yeah. But this is truly a travesty of the new sequel trilogy. It's just, you can't not have it planned out better than this. It's literally like, okay, I'll get it to this point, and then
is that a triple negative? You can't don't have it planned. Whatever you just said was
negatives
great.
Here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Triple negatives.
Let's put it up on the screen for everyone to read right about here. Somewhere. Right over there.
Triple negatives.
It was fitting.
Don't have a plan.
Yeah, and you can't not plan. Don't your sentences before you speak them. where that's what happens.
But to approach it with this sort of, okay, that's my okay, I started it, now
Like you
tag
did this
you're it,
video.
and then the next it's like, okay, what am I gonna do? Okay, I'll just make it crash and burn, and then let's give it back to the
Yeah,
original guy.
yeah.
Let me try and save this. I just, and I know we're not doing a Rise of Skywalker discussion, but again, my take on that is I liked that movie so much better that I would just throw out Last Jedi entirely, take the third film, expand it into 2 films, expand the story, do the whole Palpatine theme throughout. Then we get more of a payoff on the climax, and have that be the final 2 films
Well,
of
it's kind
the
of like
trilogy.
pick your villain, Palpatine or Snoke. Either one would have been okay if they had developed him from the beginning. I
From
say
the
since
beginning,
Snoke was in the first one, just leave Snoke in there.
yeah.
There really was no difference between the 2 characters. So it's just one violated a lot of people's feelings about the original movies, which is Palpatine,
Yeah.
and one wouldn't because he's in a brand new original character. So it's kind of nostalgia versus why don't you have faith in your new ideas?
Right.
But yeah, boy, that is a subject for a whole nother video. Which
Yeah, I
maybe
mean, we
we'll
could
do
literally
at some
do like
point.
an entire. We could do an entire episode on that, but not
Yeah.
to just go crazy with it right now. I just wanted to throw it out there. That is, I can't not mention that if we're talking about least favorite things about the sequel trilogy. That's
Yes.
absolutely
Uh,
a ruining factor.
in regards to the way I was thinking about our subject here, I wasn't thinking in those broad terms, but I absolutely 1 billion jillion can't not don't
Can't
absolutely
not
do
don't
agree with
disagree.
you. uh, it boggles the mind. I mean, just unbelievable. And I think what a lot of that comes down to, there's a lot of mystery that we could speculate and say we know about who at Lucasfilm pulled the trigger on these different things. We don't know. But ultimately, the people in charge have to bear responsibility, in my opinion, because they let it happen, whether they approved it specifically or not. Whoever it is, if it went above Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, he should bear the responsibility, and he has borne some of it. But ultimately, whoever's in charge over there at Lucasfilm is the one who should have to answer for that, or the ones.
Right.
But how you spend $4 billion on something, and what we saw over and over again, what's coming out is that these movies were rushed. As hard as that is to believe, as big a production warehouse as Lucasfilm and Bad Robot and all these people are, they still were. It was too much, to do for that group of people. And the plan of saying, evidently, with all these Lucasfilm projects, they kind of had we're just going to grab this director for this director for this director for this, and a lot of it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
it didn't work out from Lucasfilm's perspective because they were the ones replacing people. So, but with your main Saga films, yeah, that's inexcusable.
Absolutely inexcusable. You have to have a coherent plan going into this.
And when you get J.J. Abrams to whatever you want to say about him, he can crank these movies out all day. And for him to say, I need at least 6 more months on the first one, and they had to literally push the release back, it just couldn't be done. And looking at Rise of Skywalker, it just couldn't be done. It didn't. The failing is that movie. Most of them probably come down to that. These movies are rushed, and there's no plan. And it reeks of of the people in charge not really knowing their Star Wars very well, and just kind of saying, "Seems okay to me,"
Right. Seems Star Wars-ish to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the Falcon. You got Chewie in there, right? Yeah, I mean, you got all
so
the masks we can sell and the
good
Falcon.
enough.
So yeah, no plan for me. Yeah, man, you can't get any. That is the whole thing. But my next dislike, is going to be, oh my God, take your pick. But I swore to myself I would mention this. It is the don't tell me you transporting Ratars. You got Ratars? Do you have Ratars in here? Shit? What's a Ratars? Looking back, and I knew it at the time, but looking back, it's even more blatant. To me, that is a tribute to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a great, phenomenal series of books, which I loved as a young person, and I
Yeah.
loved the show, and I love them, but it's not Star Wars. It is a parody of Star Wars. Let's be clear. It's a
Exactly.
parody of science fiction. It's a parody of life, everything.
Right.
So
Ugh.
that movie, The Force Awakens, to me was flying along at an awesome. They were introducing the characters the right amount of time. It wasn't rushed, but it was fast. And then you get to Luke. Yes, it's all true. Luke went to find the temple and Raptors.
Yeah.
The needle just goes off the record
Yeah.
player, at that point. And it's like
Insert needle scratch.
your scabs are old, Solo. There's nobody left for you to swindle and all that. It's like, oh man, what happened to the movie I was watching? What? Because Han's reintroduction was awesome.
Yeah.
But then suddenly we're talking about Rathtars and King Prana and what? And the characters are crawling on all fours and I hit the wrong button. It's a parody and it doesn't seem Star Wars at all. And it had potential because they had some of the actors from The Raid and stuff in there, which would have been great if they let them do some action choreography. But their action choreography takes years. They actually spend years on the stuff they do.
Exactly.
So we're not allowed to do that at Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
So
that's one of the scenes.
Rathtars,
That is one of the scenes that took me out of the film as well. You're right. It was kind of building up perfectly to that point, and that was the first real, sort of moment for me. Like, what's going on? And to me, it was. I mean, yes, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I see that connection, and that to me is also when it's like they. And this is also another discussion.
Say the Trillian Massacre, which Trillian is one of the main characters from Hitchhiker's Guide.
Right. But to me, the whole feel of it was like suddenly we're in a Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yes.
Kind of like what they did with. I won't go into that because that's actually going to be one of my other dislikes. But
yeah. Well, and I wanted to say the main reason I dislike that is not because of what it just did to The Force Awakens, but it slipped in that tone. And I can't describe what that tone is in particularly, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And it reappears again and again through the sequel trilogy, like a bad rash or something. Yeah. And you just want to get antibiotics and make it go away. And if they ever do a Phantom edit or whatever, a Force Awakens edit of all this stuff, I hope somebody does one. I'm not for dead serious, grim.
No,
you can't do that with a Saga film. But that's too far. When it becomes a parody of itself and right out of the gate, and let's face it, it was filler. The middle part of The Force Awakens is chock full of filler there, and it's completely unnecessary. And they just put Luke off to the end of the movie when they could have had room for Leia and Luke and instead of Rathtars. So,
all right,
that's big dislike for me.
Since we're on this subject, I'm going to go actually jump into another dislike because since we're already talking about it,
sure.
And that one of the main dislikes. Now, although this is not a problem in Rise of Skywalker, but for the first two films, specifically Last Jedi, is the humor and, like you said, the tone. They just that gets back to your point that you made about maybe the people in charge of this sequel trilogy really didn't know Star Wars as well as they should have.
Right.
They're trying to put Marvel style humor into these films. Star Wars humor is different. It is completely different.
No.
It's more subtle. It can be comical and silly too. You've got 3PO and the stuff that he does, but it tends to be more subtle and sarcastic, and it's not in your face all the time. So when it happens, it's even funnier because you don't expect it. But then you get to Last Jedi, and it's like the movie within the first 2 minutes, bam, you've got jokes in your face. Wait, I waited 2 years for a Star Wars film to get jokes, to get Marvel jokes. Right. It's like, what is it? General Hugs, really?
That's and we never got to meet Hugs' mother either.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're gonna set that halfway, it's at least meet the lady.
So I think tone was a big problem for me as an overarching theme, as a really real problem with the sequel trilogy, because that just completely took me out of. That's another thing that took me out of the film even before we got to Luke flipping the saber over. Is that opening scene, where it's just this joking banter back and forth that it's just like, what? I don't know. Okay, I'll hold. Is anybody there? Hello, I'll hold. Yeah, okay. I'm like, what? Are we watching outtakes? Are they the bloopers or the?
And to say General Leia has a message for your mother. It's like, don't involve Leia in your mother joke. We all know she didn't do that. To me, it's like saying, you look at Star Wars. There's a running gag of the Falcon not starting, and Han Solo always working on it. That is American 50s, 60s, 70s rooted humor of people working on their car in their garage, making a hot rod, all that stuff. Because of when Star Wars started and how it said that joke works. If we had all the characters stopping in front of the the Starkiller base to take a selfie, that wouldn't work, right?
It would not
It's
work.
too
Exactly.
new. It has nothing to do with nostalgia. It has to do with the rules of the Star Wars galaxy itself.
Right.
And that will work in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, just like you said. It will fall flat every single time in a Star Wars film.
Yep.
Where are the people in the editing room? Where are the people in the script writing process who know the tone of Star Wars, who could have just improved these movies 1,000,000% just by making their voices heard?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where are they? I still don't
don't
see
know
them.
where they are. Yeah,
they're all
they're
working
gone.
on the Mandalorian. They're not doing 100% job on that either, but they're doing much better. Okay. So that was your dislike.
That was my third dislike.
third
Okay.
dislike. Okay, then let's see. We're getting down to it, and I'm going to go with. There's so many things.
No, there are.
There
There really are.
But I might as well get to it because we're not
Okay.
doing these in any order. The death of Han Solo. All
Okay.
right. We're on dislikes here, but
Yeah.
I have to say, for me, since we're going to start doing a like next, this is a dislike and a like.
Okay.
So it's one of my favorite moments from the sequel trilogy, and it's one of my most hated moments from movies ever. Originally, when I saw The Force Awakens, it is a phenomenal moment. It honestly, it affected me like no other moment in a film except maybe Schindler's List, it shows you how damaged my mind is to conflate those two events.
Right.
But I remember the feeling when I saw Schindler's List of just, man, this is just unrelenting, and just being so horrified and that growing sense of horror. Well, that moment with Solo is completely different because it's pop culture, but it's still the murder, just flat out murder of your pop culture icon in front of you with the original guy playing him. The reason I dislike it is because if you're going to do that, you have to pay it off.
Right.
I do not believe they paid it off. The Last Jedi really dropped the ball on that. When you're considering what we gave up to get a moment of drama and to develop Kylo Ren's character, it's not worth it in the end because it developed no one else in the long run. You could say it developed Rey, but really we never saw how. You could say for those who witnessed it, it was a character, but I'm not a believer in throwing away characters to develop other characters,
right?
Or to just give us some nice dramatic moments or whatever. Do something with it. Either it's totally random or it has a real meaning. And this wasn't totally random. We've seen the whole sequel trilogy. I have no idea still why Ben Solo killed his father. No.
Yeah. Right.
Zero.
No.
I have no idea.
Paid it up
all of his resentment was for Luke, according to what I saw.
Exactly.
So I have no idea why he would kill his father. Taking him captive would have accomplished the exact same thing, and turning him over to Snoke or something, or using him against the Resistance. Or I understand the whole give yourself to the dark side thing, but is the dark side just a murder cult? Because
right.
Over and over again they say, strike this person down and you'll complete your training.
Yeah.
So pretty much if I just murder someone, I finally complete my training. I thought it was a discipline.
Yeah.
I thought it was a freaking discipline. Now, if you're done with all the disciplines and they say, now you're in a gang, so beat down this person to show you're part of the gang, or drive by and shoot this person to show you're part of the gang, that's different. And I can more understand that. But when you muddy the waters and say, this is going to complete your training, well, how? I mean, you're just a death cult at that point. I wanted a lot more from the dark side and from the disciples of the dark side for all of Star Wars, really. Yeah. I know it's an empty philosophy, but I'd love to know more of the rules. I think the Clone Wars did more of that than the movies have.
Oh, absolutely.
Showing us how they're trained, what goes into it. So anyway, it didn't pay off for me for the next two films, especially The Last Jedi. And what we gave up was Leia, Han, and Luke together in a scene. Okay. Never ever going to happen because they killed off Han in that moment.
Yep.
So in the end, it wasn't worth it to me, and it was a horrible feeling in the theater. I thought I was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was having a panic attack or something. Just to be honest, it was terrible. It was the worst, one of the worst moments I've ever had in a theater. I just
Yeah.
felt like I was at the end of Raiders: of the Lost Ark. I felt like I was one of the Nazis at the end of that. Like my face was melting off. I was like, "Make it stop." The reason I like it, so we're going to transition to likes now. The reason I like it though is
Mm-hmm.
because Han Solo deserved a good ending if you're going to give him one.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out, but in the moment, and I guess just for that one little story of Ben Solo and Han being the one to bring him back, it worked. It did give us a dramatic moment that was unlike any other we've seen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it should have been a moment for Kylo Ren to really
Mm-hmm.
build that villain and make him, one of the worst villains, and it really didn't pan out that way either. But
No. No.
but it was well acted by everyone. It was the lighting was great, the music was phenomenal. Chewie's reaction was great. There's a lot
Yeah.
to like there, but not for what we ended up getting. And I do want to say the continuity in that scene
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the best either,
Okay.
because some of the characters come up on a balcony, and then there's a bridge that the bridge ends up facing 5 different ways depending on who's at it. Like, what is this? They never figured out where the bridge actually was or anything. And these people are suddenly, they've climbed this huge ladder, just like Jyn Erso in Rogue One, this
Mm-hmm.
humongous ladder. They're all the way up here, where they're perfectly out over it or whatever, when there's no way that would have worked out. So anyway, the continuity was pretty bad in that scene, but it was forgivable. And
Yeah.
I love the moment where Kylo Ren's face turns red
Mm-hmm.
and black, and the what's about to happen. So
Right.
it's a like
Right.
and dislike. So what's your next like? If you wanna
Okay,
put
well,
that-
okay, so I'm actually going to do both, just like you just did. I'm going to do a like,
Okay.
and it's going to, and the same thing about it. There's parts of it that so this will be my fourth like and dislike. All right, so my fourth like is the visualization of the First Order. It's not the Empire. I still prefer kind of the aesthetics of the Empire, the old stormtroopers versus the new, the old officer outfits versus the new whatever. That's just my own personal
Sure.
preference because I prefer the original. But what I like about it is I do like the stylistic approach to it. I thought, and the way that they shot it, and the way that they show it being so expansive inside Starkiller Base, for instance. Obviously, I can't help but compare that to like what the Death Star from the original trilogy, kind of like what that looked like, compare and contrast it. And it to me, it genuinely looked like what a progression would look like. 30 years into the future or whatever.
Right.
That they would progress to that point and they would look like that. So I think they did a good job of that by not just throwing it back to just let's just do Empire stuff again. So I thought they did a nice, and the way that they upgraded things like the TIE fighters, they added, we got to see a little bit more about how they work, how they're, how they dock in the docking bays and things in the hangars, adding a little bit of red to them here and there. I thought that was kind of a cool little touch. I like the aesthetics of it. Okay, so my dislike for that same thing about the First Order is what I disliked was the I with the Empire, almost like you were saying about the Imperial March earlier, I felt like, whoa, this is intense. This is an empire.
Right.
This is just dominating, oppressive government that's just going to take you down. Whereas in the
Right.
First Order, I'm just like, it's almost like the way the officers interacted, it was like this quibbling little fraternity.
Right.
It's like nobody likes each other. They're all and they're all just like snarky with each other.
Yeah.
It's like, at least with the Empire, it's like they all knew they had a job to do. They're all there for this bigger mission of controlling the universe and blah blah blah. Whereas with these guys, it's almost just like, well, I can one up you and I can make a wittier comment than you. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what? And
It's much more of a social media approach to
right,
it.
right,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, it's actually exactly. It's almost like more people like bickering on the internet about something, but amongst each other, like the officers were in the
have
First
you
Order.
seen my Instagram followers? How dare you?
So that's one thing that's my big dislike about the First Order is just the overall theme or tone of the characters themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, nothing against Hux. I mean, I think Domhnall Gleeson did a great job with the character. I think he did what was asked of him, but a lot of the secondary officers and things like that, and just like I know what they were trying to do in Last Jedi. I know that opening scene was supposed to be reminiscent of a submarine, with the red lighting and them dropping bombs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's like, it's like depth charges, and I get it. It's all
Yeah.
World War II. I get it.
Seawolf.
Yeah, exactly. And Das Boot and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that's fine. But it's the characters themselves just were very thin to me. I think is what it boils down to, and they're really sort of just like almost like comic book characterizations of characters to me. And they just didn't have the depth that like a General Veers or an Admiral Ozzel or a Tarkin or something like that had from the original trilogy.
And they didn't seem to have a thing called the First Order. They didn't seem to have a whole lot of order.
No, they didn't. And I think
like the Empire, you knew who was in charge.
I was forgetting there. They just didn't have the presence that the old characters did from the original trilogies.
Well, it didn't help that we were given almost no explanation of who they are or what they're doing or what they want. Yeah. All we know is what Huck said, this government tolerates chaos and disruption. It's like he's a neat freak. That's all we know. It's like it's run by neat freaks who want to just categorize everything in the galaxy. Okay, that's not real sinister to me, or
all right, so that's my fourth like and dislike.
Okay, that was your like and dislike. So we're back on. This is kind of our last one.
Yeah, our last for
our
each.
Our top one. So, I'm gonna go with the green mammalian tit milk from the Last Jedi. The Luke Skywalker breastfeeding. Something you never ever in a million years
never needed to see that.
No. I mean, he's a moisture farmer. It's a type of moisture. He's farming it, I guess.
It's a type of moisture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Luke, but you're surrounded by ocean. Couldn't you just desalinate it? You could build a little desalinator or something, or just learn to drink the ocean water. A lot less. Use the forest to get the salt out of it. If it is salty, it's on an alien planet. We don't even know. It might be fresh water. But
funny.
Yeah, it is the just criminalization of the Luke Skywalker character represented by that scene, which in a better film and with a better arc for Luke and everything, that scene would have been passable, I think, maybe. But in that movie, it fell really hard on its flippers, teats, and everything. And Mark Hamill did what he was supposed to do with that. It definitely firmly established Luke as the, crustacean barnacle that he was in that movie. But, I created a meme that said "never forget" with a picture of him holding that up and going, it's so good. Because every time I want to like something that Disney Star Wars does, I'm like, but never forget. I will never forget. I can't erase that. It's impossible. That I don't even think I need to go into why that was so bad, but
you really
I am convinced that Rian Johnson is a fan of anime, and that he was writing and like Chinese kung fu movies kind of that are in Japanese that are influenced by anime or that influenced anime. I think he was writing him as a Master Roshi type character from Dragon Ball.
Okay, yeah.
Countless
I can see that.
Where when you meet the Master, he's not what you expected. And he does this, has a lot of weird, almost pervy habits and stuff. And he's just a total character. Unfortunately, that was never what Luke was. So it was a completely different person. But when the first time I saw the movie, when I saw Luke walking up the hill with the giant cartoon fish, I was like, oh, I get it now. He's an anime character.
Right.
And that's what he was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I expected him at some point to, become super deformed and get angry and like the little version and to his feet.
Right.
Like,
So he's throwing a fit. Yeah.
yeah. And I expected him to really make a pass at Ray, not like a real one, but just like look
Yeah.
at her while she's in the shower or something. Be
Yeah.
the perfect pervy
Yep.
anime weirdo, crusty old master who's mean and not what you expect and selfish. Um. Anyway, what a horrible thing. And we waited so long to be gypped by Luke drinking the green mammalian sea otter, whatever it was. It's milk straight from the tap. Yeah, unwatchable, unwatchable,
Unwatchable.
unwatchable. And you know what? No offense to Mark Hamill whatsoever. He's
No.
perfect. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on this is, if you watch the Last Jedi behind the scenes, it every time I want to like this guy Ryan Johnson, seeing him just rub his hands together in glee when they're helicoptering in that mammal. They took that freaking mammal for real and two others and put them on that island in Ireland. They flew them across the channel and spent like $5 million probably just to transport them and put them there in the middle of nowhere. They're probably still sitting there, like the ocean. Thanks a lot. He's just so, I mean, he went to so much trouble to make that happen and not
Yeah.
use a green screen, not use a set, make it real or whatever.
Hmm.
What the is wrong with that guy?
Yeah. I know.
He's not making a Star Wars movie.
I've had issues.
I cannot fault his dedication because you don't do
No, I
that.
know.
You don't
Yeah.
fly in on a helicopter to an Irish, island and set this up for the 5 minutes of light you have to get this shot unless you're dedicated.
Yeah.
What
No,
the
agreed.
is he dedicated to, though?
But that, yeah, and to your point, the making of that film, I can't even get into it, and I enjoy every making of documentary about
Mhm.
Star Wars, and that one
It's too
I
ironic.
just I can't get into, I can't enjoy it. I look and I just get a really bad vibe from it,
Yeah,
I
do
just
too.
I don't like it. So I think it's just kind of the stain of the whole film to me, It just I don't I
No,
can't even watch the behind the scenes stuff.
that one scene where the producer is having to go between Mark Hamill and Ryan Johnson and deliver messages tells you everything you need to
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. It tells you
That
everything about their
it may have been
relationship.
smooth sailing for a lot of people on it, but it wasn't for everyone.
Not for everyone.
And there was a lot of dissent, and it's a pretty cold relationship between the guy writing and directing the movie and the actors when the producer is having to go relay messages back and forth.
Right.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, that will stand as my least favorite.
Okay.
But even though we're not doing them in any order, that has got to be it. I mean, that is horrific.
Yeah.
So you got one more dislike to go on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually go ahead and finish my dislikes now. My fifth dislike will be just the complete underutilization of Captain Phasma. I think they had a
this was
pretty
one of mine
interesting
too,
character
but
there with Gwendolyn Christie. I think they really had something they could have used there, and it's just completely an afterthought. It's barely any screen time, very little dialogue, almost no action. I just feel like that was a missed
no
opportunity,
character,
especially
nothing.
when they did no character development especially because of the way that they tried to sell the character going into the trilogy. It's like, oh, this is going to be he's on all the posters, and this is going to be a big featured character, and it really wasn't. It was just
No.
kind of a background afterthought character, and I just think that they could have really done more with her, and I just feel like it was just to waste her talents, honestly, that they could have really done
No,
more.
and I think the majority of Star Wars fans, if you polled them, would say Boba Fett going in the Sarlacc pit was not part of the everlasting charm of Star Wars.
Mhm.
It's one of those things you wish you could fix. And so you don't do a tribute to the Boba Fett character in his untimely end by creating an exact same thing,
Doing the
version
same thing with a different
2.0.
character.
Yeah, no one wanted to see it the first time.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's just
Why
something
recreate it?
we accept it. It's something we
Yeah.
accept. They were up against limitations,
Yeah.
and there's only so much they could do with a guy in a mask trying to do combat. It's not going to happen. Back in '83,
Right.
So now you have the resources though and everything, and the billions of dollars, and the fans are behind it. Yeah, that was going to be one of mine too. If we had a more expansive list, especially the end of Captain Phasma and just that whole ridiculous scene. But yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think we got one last like here.
Yeah.
No, think hard. There has to be something.
Well, you still have one more dislike and a like.
Oh, do I still? Oh, I get a bonus dislike. Okay.
Well, no, not a bonus. It just should be number 5 for you.
Okay, I was marking them down, but I think I did a double like dislike, so you're probably thinking I have an
Oh,
X.
okay, that's fine. Well, if you
But
didn't, then you
never
just feel
far be
like
it from Greedo to reject
to miss
disliking,
an opportunity to dislike
expressing
something.
dislike for something. So I am going to take it. Let's see. Gosh, there's so many things. You know, I could say the Leia flying in space. I could
Oh.
say there's a lot of stuff I could say. But I haven't done any. I haven't done any dislikes from. And an honorable mention goes to Poe too, with the whole. You know, remember, as long as there's sun, we got a chance.
Mhm.
But if it's dark, we lose all. You know, I hate that friggin' line.
Yeah.
I gotta go with Rise. I'm gonna give one to Rise of Skywalker, and I've been doing pretty specific moments. So I'm gonna stick with that. It is Maz Kanata, and you can pick any moment you want, but the one I'm gonna pick out is, you know, hey Maz, no one's asking what's going on. Okay, well let me explain. Leia knows
Oh,
that
yeah.
what she is about to do will take all of her strength for her son. And say, or whatever
To
she
reach her
said.
son. Yeah.
Yeah, shut up, Maz Kanata.
Yeah.
You were the one flying around in a jetpack in The Last Jedi. I couldn't be bothered to come help when the
Right.
rebellion was literally 12 people from being annihilated. And they're running out of gas. You could have just brought a gas can, you know, or something. You could have done anything. It's like, all that matters is how we fight the darkness. But I'm busy, you know. And then you come back in this one to play, you know, Madam Obvious. Empress Obvious. Every single line she said was just there to explain to the dumb people like me in the audience who didn't understand what was going on. That was the worst. That scene was I thought overall pretty good sequence there, but it would have been again just so much improved if you just cut that.
Yeah.
People aren't that stupid. We don't need narration.
Right. We don't need
You
to be
know,
told
from
what's
people in the
happening.
scene.
Show
It's
us,
completely
don't tell us.
unrealistic. It's
Yeah.
good. Why wouldn't Maz go over and help her or say, "Oh, Leah, isn't there?" If she knows what's going on, why doesn't she go over and say, "Is there some other way?" or "Let me lend you my strength," or something? Instead,
Right.
she's explaining to
Just
someone.
automatically resigned to the fate, you know.
Yeah, Chewbacca or BB-8 or whoever it was that was, you know, beeping at her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, it's so dumb and so bad,
Mm-hmm.
and took me
Mm-hmm.
right out of the movie like several moments in Rise of Skywalker. So I have to mention that one. And Maz Kanata, another dead-end character that had potential, which could be a whole nother sequence of dislikes, is what happened to the characters in the
Yeah.
sequel trilogy over and over. Okay, so ending on a bummer note there.
Yeah.
But
All right. What do we have left? We each have a like left.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My
There's no
final
rules.
like. No, you're right. You're right. Okay.
There's
So
no rules.
my final like. It's. I can tell you it's not space horses. Okay.
McClunky. McClunky.
Um,
Is it Baby
McClunky.
Yoda? Is it Baby Yoda? It has to.
It's Baby Yoda is my favorite thing. Wait.
Oh, that's right.
Wait.
They didn't
What?
even put that in these movies. The best idea they've ever had since 2014.
And it's not even.
It's like, we'll pump that aside.
Nah.
We'll put that in something else.
Exactly. All right, this is gonna probably seem like a weird one, but I really liked it. It's one of my favorite things about Rise of Skywalker, and it's just the return of Lando.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed seeing him in the films again. I mean, I know he wasn't, you know, he was in a few scenes, and there's some weird plot holes with him. It's like, you know,
Right.
last we
Where have
see
you
him
been?
once when he's like, my flying days are over, and then suddenly he's just there, you know, at the
Yeah.
base. And no one explained why he showed up or why he had a change of mind or change of heart, and he's just suddenly there in the fight, you know. But
Right.
but I loved seeing his character there again. It was just great. Just seeing Billy D. Williams back in the fold again. But again, you know, not to turn this into a dislike, but I hate that we've had all these characters come back and never do we get them together on the screen. You know,
Right.
the only thing we
He
have
has to come in and say, the best thing about us is we were together. We had each other. but look at all the corpses and most ghosts around. Well, I guess we don't have that anymore. Yeah, it's like way to go, Lando. Way to show up way after the fact, kind of like this whole trilogy.
Yeah.
And just,
Oh, that's
Lando's shutting the party down. He's closing the place out. It's way after closing time. He's still partying.
exactly. So yeah, so I would say that my final like on that would be just seeing Lando back, seeing Billy Dee Williams reprising their character on screen again.
All right, that is a great one, and I agree with that. I think it was a movie too late.
Yeah, I agree.
It's another subject for another video again. It's there's a lot of things I liked about the sequel trilogy. I'm trying to find the one to end with off the top of my head because I really did like all the lightsaber battles, even as sloppy as the one in the Last Jedi was.
Mhm.
I mean, it was really sloppy and bad. I still enjoyed it. Because again, that was a moment where action was happening, but I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with one that people hated, and it's a like for me. And it involves Maz Kanata, unfortunately. I wish it should have been anyone but her. But I liked when Chewie got the medal at the end of The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. No, that is a good one.
Now, a lot of people think that's just a bridge too far, and that's the moment it jumped. If it didn't jump the shark before it did there.
Too much fan service.
Way too much fan service, and I understand. But here's the thing. I think that would have happened. I think that's natural and normal, and so it can't really be fan service. It's just a moment that made the final cut.
Yeah.
Now, when they're celebrating at the end and Chewie's tossing the medal up and down the air, whatever he's doing, that's a little fan servicey. Like they're trying to say, like, this is your last memory of Chewie, is just how happy he is with this medal. It's like, he's like a dog with a treat. That's not, I don't see that. But why I think it's a good thing is because that was the thing Leia was holding in her hands when she passed away. Was Han Solo? We're assuming it's Han Solo's medal.
Yeah.
Or if the rebellion gives that medal out in general anyway, it was like the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Right, exactly.
It showed her, laying down to project herself across the galaxy or whatever she was doing. And she had that medal in her hands. If she had not had that medal in those scenes, I would have said, yeah, that's a contrivance. But the fact that she's thinking of all this stuff as she lays down to die, that is a physical object that's helping her focus on her husband, her late husband, and her son, and the connection to the good things about Han Solo and the moment he became a good guy, and the moment his character was established as being more than about the money and everything. And the medal is kind of symbolic of that. And so the fact that she had that in her hands and then passed away, that's like taking a picture off the mantle and giving it to one of her best friends. It's like taking a ring or something that she wanted Chewie to have.
It's not possession.
It's not just a retcon. It's not just a retcon and a correction of not giving Chewie a medal back from 1977. It is literally taking the last possession she had and handing it to one of her last remaining friends as a memento of his best friend. Way more meaningful than the stupid freaking dice from Solo and The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, just because of how it fell in the movie and what was used for. So to me, that felt right. And I like that. So I'm giving that my last.
Okay.
Because I want to give Rise of Skywalker something.
Yeah, give it some kind of props.
Right.
Yeah, that was good. No,
everything else I can think of is too controversial for me to say. I absolutely liked it. So
yeah. And we're still going to do a Rise of Skywalker wrap show when Gundark is available.
Absolutely.
So we'll get into all that then.
And anybody, if there's anybody still hanging with us, we've been on a long hiatus because of life and work. We're all working adults and everything, and different family issues and stuff. But if you're still with us and you want to participate, you put something positive down in the comments about what you liked about the sequel trilogy. It's very easy, especially for me, to get consumed with the dark side.
Yeah, let's focus on the positive.
Yeah, and look at the sequel trilogy as a big missed opportunity. But there's things there to like. And if people can grow to love the prequels over 10 or 15 years, I think the same. This will be a mixed bag. Some of it won't age well, some of it will. But overall, I think they'll be there'll be fond things to remember about it, and I'm sure we're not done totally with these characters either, no matter what Disney says.
I
So,
don't think so either. I think I'm sure in a few years we'll get something, whether it's Ray's character or whatever,
well,
like the
yeah,
Adventures of Ray, or even if it's a TV series on Disney streaming, Disney Plus, who
and I've
knows?
become convinced that the what they're left with, what's standing at the end of all this, is the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
If you're going to pick a brand an item to brand Star Wars, and Disney's very much that's their brand, one of their brands, and they're going to move forward with it, like it or not. Baby Yoda's come up in a fast second.
Yeah.
But for classic Star Wars, the overall symbol, we're left with the Millennium Falcon
Is the Millennium
because
Falcon.
the
Yeah.
lightsaber's been buried in the sand. The
Mhm.
Falcon's still there. The next story's you guarantee you the Falcon's going to be in it if they're making another Saga film in that time frame
Right.
after these events.
Yeah.
The Falcon will be there, probably even from before. They may
Mhm.
keep telling the story from before. So anyway, whatever my point was, but just put in the comments something positive. You can put negatives too. We don't care. But so far, I've let all the negative stuff stand too. You want to be that way, be that way. We don't care. But even insulting, us personally. So what? You got to. More power to you. It's the internet.
We deserve it. We deserve it.
Yeah, and you're not alone. It's just the place for all your evil demons to come out, so they don't come out in reality.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's hear some good things about it. And I think taking away from this, I take away the lack of plan that you came up with. I think was the best one. And then for likes, we both mentioned John Williams, and then of course, even though I didn't have him as one of mine, I think we can agree that Adam Driver's performances as Kylo Ren was definitely top of the heap for the sequel trilogy as a whole.
Agreed. Yeah,
and we'll be back to discuss the specific movie. We still have never done anything about The Last Jedi, so I think we're just gonna, when we discuss it, we're gonna put it in perspective of the other.
Right.
Because we've slandered in passing enough, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
But, all right. Anything else?
No, I think that was an interesting little quick discussion about some of the likes and dislikes. But yeah, we'll definitely be going into a lot more detail on Rise of Skywalker coming up soon. That should be our next episode that we record.
And we may hit this again, an actual discussion of the trilogy and good and bad things with Gundark, because there's a lot more to be said on both fronts. We're just kind of randomly picking stuff that we were thinking of off the top of our head. There's a lot more to be said there. Maybe we'll do that for the Blu-ray release of Rise of Skywalker.
Exactly. All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, I guess we'll go ahead and sign out of here. Thanks again for hanging with us. If you did the whole way, we appreciate it. And like Undark said, or excuse me, like Greedo said, just leave some positive comments about what you thought of the sequel trilogy in the comments section. You can also find us again on Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And hopefully we will see you again really soon. All right. Thanks.
McClunky.
We all know around here, the Solo always does shots first. Singing yup no, yup yup. You're singing yup no, cha. Yup no, no. At the Cantina Club.
God.